on the back of beating Chelsea, they beat Brighton away, which is a really tricky place to go, really tricky team to set up against. And the way that they did set up against Brighton was tailor-made to beat them, wasn't it? They took about 20% of the ball throughout the game, so the possession stats were really low. But the way they countered and hit Brighton where it hurt was fantastic, wasn't it? And we'll talk about their coming signings in a moment, but the game itself, they couldn't have played any better, really, could they, against Brighton?
No, absolutely. And it's interesting because when you're a club that's been so built around one particular player and that player moves on, it's really important that you rebuild quickly but successfully. I've seen it obviously firsthand from a Villa point of view. West Ham seem to have really addressed their midfield well. So without Declan Rice in there, Edson Alvarez and James Ward-Prowse have slotted in perfectly. And it's really interesting to see this David Moyes iteration of West Ham because he dug his heels in. He said that he wanted more of a say on the recruitment. And I'll be honest, I'll hold my hands up and say I didn't think Ward-Prowse was the kind of player that West Ham should be looking for. I've never really understood him on the pitch. And he's been fantastic these first few games. He's clearly earned the shirt and he's loving his time there so far. And he's linking up really well with a lot of the existing players there, the talent. That's exactly what Moyes will have wanted from him. So yeah, their counter-attacking was excellent, but it just seems so easy for Mikel Antonio to find space and bully the defenders. And it's no surprise that at the start of last season, West Ham's form was poor and Jarrod Bowen's form was really poor. And then as Jarrod Bowen's form picked up, so did theirs. And he started the season really sharp as well. So that's really helpful for them. They've got some excellent players, West Ham, let's not forget. This is the team that qualified for the Europa League naturally in the league a couple of years ago and then went very far in that competition. And they're back in it this year. It's a good squad. It's a really good squad. And I think that they could do pretty well this year. I think I had them quite high on my league predictions because I just feel like David Moyes has had another year with that squad now. And I'm quite glad that he's got his way with them.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I really can't put my finger on what to expect from Moyes or West Ham because of, like you say, the European commitments. They will obviously aim to go far in Europe again this season because they can. They've got a squad to do that. And not many in Europe have a squad as talented as West Ham's. So I always question where they prioritise the league. Have they got a squad deep enough? And he does still put a lot of faith in some players that don't let him down. And this game was no exception. Bowen, like you say, was exceptional. Antonio is perfectly suited to the counter-attacking game. And I think that's kind of where Scamacca was not really the right fit for West Ham last season because he didn't like to run through the channels, did he? So Antonio is perfect for that. But what if one of them is injured is the question. Now, they've just signed Mohammed Kudus as well from Ajax, which fills me with excitement because he's such an exciting player. And he's scored loads of goals for Ajax so far in the Eredivisie. So looks like a really entertaining joker in the pack for them. But the question is, will he fit into a very trusted David Moyes first 11? And will he take them to another level? Because, like you say, they feel like they're on the verge of taking the team into maybe the top 8 or something like that. But they could easily finish 14th as well, couldn't they? It's a real enigma at the minute, West Ham. Does Kudus help them?
He definitely helps them because he's a phenomenal footballer, like you say. But I do wonder where he gets into the team because there are 2 roles he could kind of occupy. He could play in central midfield, but what that would mean is probably taking Thomas Souček out, who brings you a lot of defensive capabilities. So then you probably have to drop Ward-Prowse slightly deeper. And actually, Ward-Prowse has looked really good going forward so far for West Ham. So that's a bit of a conundrum. Or I actually think Kudus was brought in to kind of be Paqueta's replacement. And now it looks like Paqueta's not going. So when you've kind of got Paqueta and Bowen occupying the roles behind the striker, that's where Kudus would like to operate. So you can have to play him as like a number 8. But then is he going to do the defensive doggies that David Moyes will need? He's an excellent player. He's such a good player. But I wonder if this is one of the ones where the famous feud of the sporting director and manager, the sporting director's got his way because it doesn't look like someone who's going to fit naturally into a Moyes system. But I have no doubt that as soon as he gets in there, he'll be phenomenal because he's a very talented footballer.
So what are your kind of expectations for West Ham then in the league, especially? Are you still kind of sticking with around 10th place, like mid-table? Do you think that's kind of the realistic aim for them?
I think so, yeah. I think if they got the top half finish after last season, they'd be really pleased with that, particularly considering they're already in the Europa League this year as well. And we know that they'll enjoy a cup run because they did last year and the year before. David Moyes will go for that, absolutely. I think the competition at the top end of the league is so tight this year because you've got the traditional top 4 or last season's top 4. You've got Liverpool trying to get back into it. You've got Chelsea trying to get back into it. You've got Spurs, who look a much improved team. We've got Villa and Newcastle hanging around, Brighton. So it's a really difficult league to cement one of the top 8 or 9 places all of a sudden. But West Ham will definitely be in the conversation come the end of the season, or at least just underneath it.